Hello, everyone. This is wonderful. Everyone's rolling in. Hello. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to give it a minute or two for everyone to get settled into the Zoom webinar, and then we'll get things started. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Madison Shields. I'm the Associate Director here on the MBA admissions team. I am so thrilled that you're taking time out of your day, your evening, to join me for this application workshop. I'm thrilled to kind of share some insights and walk through the application itself, and really looking forward to diving deeper on some great insights. Before I get started, I just would like to set a couple of ground rules and expectations. If you have any questions, I'm going to be dividing this application workshop into kind of two parts. So I'll pause after each, I would say, section, then we can address questions, and then obviously leave some more questions for the end. So I'll divide it into the quantitative analysis and our qualitative analysis approach. With that said, if you do have questions and if they come to your mind, I want to make sure that you don't lose them. So if you can drop them into the Q&A box, that'd be a wonderful way for me to help keep track of your questions and make sure I can get to as many questions as possible and kind of monitor that. I would also love to kind of get to know where you're all calling in from. If you can put into the chat, not in the Q&A box, where you're calling in from, that'd be a great way for me to kind of get to know you before we get started. All right, let's see. Oh, you know what? I think the chat webinar might be disabled. So if that is the case, you can put it in the Q&A box. I would love to get to know where you're all calling in from today. Hello from India. Thank you so much for joining. Alana, Alaska. Hello. That's great. Alana again. Oh my goodness. Hello. Texas, South Carolina. We're calling literally from everywhere. This is wonderful. Kansas, Nigeria. We have a local Virginia and Delaware. Oh, Dubai. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And we're going to have a great session. So now that I know a little bit about where you're all calling in from, it's great to see that, we're well represented across the whole world. With that said, I would also love to get to know, I recognize that the round one application deadline is coming up next Tuesday, October 1st. So I will be addressing a lot of these approaches for that round one deadline, but I know a lot of people are also probably still in the information gathering stage, which is great. And I will pause to address those questions, but I recognize that I would like to get as many questions as possible kind of addressed and concerns for next Tuesday. Can't believe it, a week away. All right, let's jump right on it. I would like to start off, as I said, addressing how we approach the admissions committee once you've, provided your application. So we really provide an MBA application review in two parts. The holistic review is broken down into our quantitative and qualitative aspects. It's primarily composed of these six main key components. And I'm going to start off by diving into the quantitative aspect first. With that said, though, my first recommendation for the Georgetown McDonough application or for any application that you're sitting down to start, whether it's for an MBA or looking to, participate in a dual degree program or also considering other options out there for yourself, my recommendation is to open up that application portal, start an application, go through all the different subsections and really test the actual application portal itself. This is going to give you a really great understanding outside of looking at the website of what you should be expecting, how you should be preparing your recommender with a heads up of how their application portal works, and any sort of, I would say, nuanced questions that you need to ensure that you're preparing as you start to pull together all your application components. So, like I said, It's a great way to start off is start your application, check it out. All right, we're going to dive into the wonderful aspect of quantitative backgrounds. One of the primary quantitative components that the admissions committee is going to review is your academic history. This is going to be taking a look and a deep dive into your transcripts. So here at Georgetown McDonough, we are going to ask for your transcripts from all your completed degrees. We would like to see your any sort of undergraduate degree, any sort of master's degree. We're going to need all those unofficial transcripts. Um, as of right now, at this point in the application, you will only need to provide unofficial transcripts. If you are international students, we will also require your diploma certification and a screenshot of that. Something else to keep in mind here in your academic history is that we will need a screenshot of that grade scale. And this is regardless of if you're an international student or domestic, all applicants must provide a screenshot or an official grade scale PDF. That way the admissions committee can really compare and dive into those nuances of your grading scale. A pitfall that we tend to see on here is that when we ask for those transcripts, a lot of students have completed a study abroad program, and we do need those study abroad grades. So some schools will require, those institutions will require you to request an unofficial transcript from them additionally, because we need to see that letter grade. We cannot just see pass or fail on that. So keep in mind as you're preparing those unofficial transcripts on that one as well. With that said, we also want to keep in mind that, your GPA is something that's pretty stagnant, and we're humans behind the application review process. We understand that, students are coming in from undergraduate or previous masters from all different walks of life, and the rigor or the area of study may, be slightly different. So that's why we ask for all those transcripts so we can really go in and deep dive into your trends as a student. We want to make sure that we're setting you up for success to handle the quantitative rigor and academic expectations once you're in the classroom. We provide the grade scale for the GPA. On our website, we have updated the GPAs and the class profiles, so you can see those updated stats now. And we recognize that while we provide the averages, a lot of students are not going to fall particularly on that actual average, especially if your institution has a different grade scale. So this is why we really provide the averages, and so you can see where you fit in within that that bit larger range. Then comes the test scores. This is probably where a lot of questions come up. So this is just one aspect of that holistic quantitative approach. We are again assessing your quantitative abilities. So, say a student is coming in with a medium to on the lower end of our 80th percent range for that GPA, a test score, a really strong test score with, really strong quantitative benchmarks is a great way to show how you've evolved and how you've improved as a student and can speak more to your quantitative abilities versus something that you cannot change in your past. On the flip side, if you're coming from a very strong STEM and quantitative current background, we do provide a test waiver. I'm going to pause there and just, talk about the nuance and differences between the full-time and flex test waiver policies. Most of these application components are going to be very similar for full-time and flex, with the caveat of the test waiver policy. If you are a full-time applicant looking to assess if you meet these test waiver policy criteria, you have to just go to our website. Actually, I will, let's see, I can pull this up now. Yes, all right. For the full-time test waiver policy, you will have to apply for it to be reviewed by the admissions committee before you can submit a complete and full application to begin processing. If you are a flex student, you still have the same criteria and the same, transparent criteria that we're going to assess on. However, if you're applying for the flex program, you're going to self-assess if you meet that criteria, and you can apply without submitting test scores. if you're able to clearly identify that you've met those areas of qualifications. And I'm going to drop in the flex test waiver policies right now. So those are just the two the nuances. And keep in mind, if you're a full-time applicant, you should, check out that test waiver policy sooner than later, so the admissions committee can give you an appropriate review decision before that deadline, whether that's the round one or upcoming ones. We do have deadlines, and you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success if you do have to sit for a test. I will also make the mention that as of right now, the GMAT test scores that we have on our website and on this page are for the traditional GMAT. If you are beginning the process, I would like to just inform you that the GMAT and GRE last year underwent some, I would say, calibration and test revisions, and so the tests look a little bit different. With that said, we did not have enough test scores for the GMAT Focus Edition to really publish a fair assessment of the averages, just because of the quantity of the test scores were not meeting statistical significance. And we want to make sure that, if you have a range, you can email us and we can provide a little bit of nuances. But as of right now, they're really just the ranges for the original traditional GMAT that we are leaning on for the class profiles. With that said, admissions committee members are fully equipped to look at the 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 test calibrations from GMAT and jury that they have published on their website, and we use that as our benchmarks to assess where you fall on your test scores. So we are equipped to handle and know how to look at the different nuances of those tests. In addition, when you submit your application, we do ask you to clarify whether it was a traditional GMAT score or the GMAT Focus Edition that you were providing stats for. And that is why we look at the calibration, the published calibration benchmarks on GMAT. Okay, the last aspect of these quantitative intensive holistic review process is work experience. Work experience is a really great way to highlight the quality of classroom dynamics and experiences that you're bringing to the program, in addition to any sort of, big projects or, quantitatively intensive experiences that can provide to your studies. With that said, you're looking at about 5 to 6 years as the average for our full-time and flex students. We do have a range of, about 2 years to up to about 10 years of work experience, of full-time work experience. Now, how we calculate that, and which is pretty industry standard, is that we're calculating 2 years of work experience post your last degree your degree conferral. So if you've just graduated in, May 2022, you are now coming up onto your 2-year matriculation standpoint for fall 2024. And we do calculate, the months of work experience up until you step into the classroom. So that does, gain you a lot of experience up until you step into the academic mode. All right. I'm going to take a pause there and take a look at our Q&A box, because this is a really great area where I tend to get a lot of questions, in particular about the test scores. So let's see. Yes, if your transcript does come with a grade score, that will suffice. We just need to ensure that your grade scores are associated with your university. So a screenshot or something with your university seal is great. Does a CFA level 2 qualify as enough quant rigor? That can be one aspect to our test waiver policy. So I've dropped the link into the chat with the test waiver policy, and providing a certificate like the CPA, CFA, or any additional STEM certification would be considered as one aspect of what else you need to meet. Great questions about the GMAT score. We do not provide a breakdown of GMAT ranges based on region. We are providing the whole review of the class profile of the incoming class. Oh, thank you so much for, addressing if you submit with a test waiver. So say you're a full-time applicant and you've been eligible, been deemed by the admissions committee to have met that test waiver qualifications. Does it negatively affect your application? No. As a full-time applicant, once you've been reviewed and deemed, by the admissions committee prior to submitting your application that you've met the qualification, this is a really great way to, reduce one part of the step to applying to your school, to applying to this grad degree. This is a great way for us to say that we have enough confidence in your background, and it will not negatively impact you for merit-based scholarship considerations. Again, for merit-based scholarships, we consider many factors, and if you have been, determined to have met that test waiver qualification, that does not silo you out. As a flex applicant, if you have, self-assessed that you've met the criteria, um, and the admissions committee upon review and the multiple steps reviews that you've met that again, the same holistic review and merit-based consideration applies to the as the full-time. So if you have been deemed confident and you have not provided test scores, that will not hinder you necessarily from merit-based scholarship considerations. Now, if you're a flex applicant and you're hindering between, should I provide more quantitative abilities? Does this necessarily meet it? I always like to caution on the side of uh, proactiveness. So, really take a deep dive into your transcripts, refresh your memory on those grades that you got per semester. And if the admissions committee needs more confidence, you will know that at the time of decision release. Um, Great question, Will, on how do we assess candidates submitting either a GMAT focus and an EA score. We understand that sitting for a test takes a lot of preparation, and we really encourage you to take the test that you will rock. We do not necessarily have a preference. We really want to see your best effort. So if you've have taken two different tests or have seen significant improvement, we're looking for progression, and we're looking to see how you've adapted and adjusted your tactics and have shown any sort of improvement. So we will look at both test scores and both maybe multiple attempts, or if it's just one attempt, we'll see if there's been any progression based on the class profile stats. Oh, yes. We are going to submit the round two application deadline for the full-time test waiver. That should be on the form, if not coming in the next couple weeks, now that we are past round one. Yes, equivalencies to the CPA from other countries are allowed for the waiver for the standardized test form. Again, I would recommend submitting it as one of the many application components that will go into that review. And uh, that can be considered an international equivalent to a CPI. I do not have the percentage of applicants who waive the test scores live, uh, but that is a great question. Thank you so much. And this is actually going to be my final question before I jump into the qualitative review. So I have a prospective student who is asked, can you update your GMAT score after submitting it in the round one application? And if you do, when should we send in the new scores? My recommendation is to submit in round one your most competitive application with your best test scores. If you have decided to sit again for the test, we do provide an application component update period. It is going to be a brief couple of weeks, but essentially you should reach out to our main inbox, Georgetown MBA, georgetown.edu, for a specific form that you will fill out and provide those updates. With that said, though, we really encourage you to apply with all the most updated scores at the time of when you submit your application. There's a brief period, and you want to make sure that you don't miss it, which is why we encourage you to apply with all the most updated application components by the deadline. So again, reach out to Georgetown MBA at georgetown.edu if that is your personal situation. Okay, great. We've covered a lot of wonderful aspects of it. I'm going to keep moving along so I make sure that I address all the qualitative aspects of it, and we can come back to more of the quantitative Q&As as well. All right, jumping into the qualitative. For the qualitative, we're going to be looking at your personal essays. We're going to be considering the evaluative interview as well as your letter of recommendations. Your letter of recommendation, I'd like to start here, is going to be a professional recommender. Here at Georgetown McDonough, we only ask for one letter of recommender. It's not meant to be a trick question. We really do just want one, and we do highly encourage it to be a current supervisor. For the flex, we do require it to be a direct or current supervisor. For the full time, a lot of the questions I typically get asked are, this is a big conversation that I'm not quite ready to have with my current supervisor. So then we encourage you to ask someone who has also seen your career progression in a lateral position. That is something that is pretty common, especially this point of the application process. And so if that is the case for your particular situation, we encourage you to address that in the optional essay as to why you chose someone other than your direct supervisor, but still has a managerial, position above you. We also really encourage you to consider someone that is, has seen you through multiple phases of your career growth. If you are in a position where you've just transferred positions or have switched companies, again, it would probably be best to pick a current supervisor. But if it's really fresh, we recommend, someone that has seen that duration of growth. And again, just address them in the optional essay. Now, on the other hand, if you are someone who has more of an entrepreneurship background with, clients or not necessarily having a supervisor, we encourage you to pick a person that has seen maybe you in a mentorship role that can still provide that unbiased opinion. Great. I also, before I keep moving on, I also encourage students before they choose their recommender or once they've chosen their recommender to really sit down, have a conversation, and coach them on what you are presenting in your full application. While they might be aware of your MBA goals and aspirations, um, talking to them about your personal essays and what you're choosing to highlight as some of your proudest accomplishments is a good reminder of, to them how you are displaying your leadership, or if there are areas of growth that you want them to touch on and highlight that you think the admissions committee doesn't necessarily glean from your other components. So I think that's always a good reminder is, really coach your recommender on what you're sharing in your application. Okay, personal essays. Here at Georgetown, we require one written essay and one video essay. We provide you with 3 written essay prompts. And again, this is not meant to be a trick question. We only require you to provide one written essay prompt to one of those prompts. So pick the prompt that speaks the most to you. This year, we are focusing on the Georgetown community, care personalis, or achieving excellence. My recommendation is to read through all those essay prompts and choose the one that speaks the most authentically to your story. Whether it's, how you hope to contribute to the Georgetown community with your authentic background and your unique and diverse perspective, or how you've really, helped to care for the whole person, whether it's in a professional, academic, or personal situation, or how you have gone above and beyond achieving excellence in your professional setting. These ranges and prompts are meant to really have you deeply reflect on your personal growth and how you are going to be giving this forward into the Georgetown community. Some just general tips too as you go about the application component or the application process is make sure that you are submitting the essays for the correct school and do not try to repurpose an essay for a different school and fit it into another school's prompt. Schools and admissions reviewers can clearly tell when it's been trying to fit into someone else's mold. So really go about this with a fresh perspective. And then the video essay. This is not meant to give you any apprehensions. It's really trying to get to know who you are in a more well-rounded approach. This year, our prompt, we've adjusted it from last year, is please tell us about a hobby, a fun adventure, or a simple pleasure that you've have recently enjoyed outside of that 9 to 5 setting. We really want to get to know, you know, who you are as a community member, as a family member, or personally, what is sparking that excitement outside of that work aspect. And please keep in mind that this has a 1 minute requirement. So please try to keep it as close as 1 minute. If you run over a few seconds, that's fine, but we really do not want to see a minute 30 seconds, a minute 10 seconds. We really want to keep it at 60 seconds. You can record it and test it as much as you want. That is the best thing about a video essay prompt here at Georgetown, is that you can try it as many times as you want and then submit your best version. And it's not meant to be, necessarily an overproduced version of yourself. Simply setting up a Zoom recording, practicing a few times, such as, a setting like this with good lighting and, a professional attire. That is a really strong foundation for a good essay, a video essay prompt. You can have a little creativity with it. Our recommendation is, if you submit your application, you can provide a password, and we recommend that you provide a password protection of the video. However, some students have not in the past, and you can go on YouTube and check it out. Just be mindful that they do not all have the same prompt as this year's prompt. So this is new for this application cycle. Great. And then the resume. So as you submit your application. I'm sorry. Clearly my coffee is tanking and I need a little bit more. But as you sit down to submit your application, you will also be providing the quality of your work experience, not just the quantity, number of years. So within your resume, we really do want a one-page resume. So please sit down, reflect on those large accomplishments, and really highlight that career progression. When we sit down to look at a resume, we want to find measurable impacts. Please use best practices of quantifying your contributions. If you are a member of any employee resource committees, if you are an active member in your community outside of that professional setting, these are really great areas to highlight on your resume. And keep in mind, if you have any employment gaps, we are humans and we understand, life takes you in different paths, but please address that in the employment gap essay. And if you feel comfortable shining a little bit of light into that optional essay. We just want to ensure that if you did have any employment gaps, were you providing to your professional development in other capacities? And in that period, were there other, professional lessons or professional networking that you participated in to stay on top of your industry skills? All right. Okay, so once you've pulled together the hard aspects of, I would say, the tangible aspects of your application, and you submit that application, you'll be then, off to the interview. So I'm actually going to jump into the next slide before I go back to the next to discuss the interview. So once you've submitted all the components that you have control over, it goes into the admissions committee for auditing to ensure that we have all aspects of your application to begin processing correctly. So we'll do a nice manual audit, and we appreciate your patience as this is a full-scale team effort. We want to make sure that we have all those transcripts. We're not missing any major, link issues with your video. just to ensure that there is a quality review check of it. Then it will go through the reading application process. It goes through multiple sets of eyes. And once it has gone through the correct channels and has gone through multiple sets of reviews, you may be you may be extended an invitation to interview. So I'm going to jump back. Invitations are offered by invitation only, and they can be offered all the way up until our decision release day. Because Georgetown releases all decisions the same day, that is why you can be extended an invitation to interview all the way up until that very last day. They are typically 30 minutes, so about 20 to 25 minutes is, the interviewer asking you about your professional experiences, your why for an MBA and why now. And then you'll have some time at the end to ask the interviewer, questions that you cannot necessarily glean from the website or from other aspects that you have done during your research process. These are blind interviews. So you do not know if it's going to be conducted by one of the admissions committee staff members, a current student, or an alum. These are meant to be blind, and the interviewer will only have your resume. So even if it's by a member of the admissions committee, the only thing they will have going into your interview is your resume. We are offering virtual and in-person interviews. We do not necessarily have a preference. It's, what fits best for your career, your work obligations and family obligations. So please pick the format that works best for you. Great. All right. So this is the full-time MBA class profile for actually last year. We are working on updating the graphics as we speak. The websites are live, and so those GRE scores and GPAs that I shared a little bit earlier, those are accurate, and as well as the website. This is going to be updated in the next day or so. So we will reflect those. I will say they have hovered about the same. We did not see, I would say, they typically hover about the same. So we'll make those little nuance changes over the next couple of days, as well as our Flex MBA and our Flex Online. All right. I always like to take a moment here because this is a big investment in yourself. There are many hard aspects about climbing this hill to submit that application. And one of them is keeping in mind that program financing. If you are not already aware of some really wonderful partners, I really encourage you to take a look at the consortium, Forte, MLT, Prospanica, reaching out, as well as any yellow ribbon benefit that you might have. These are really great partners that prepare you not only with the research aspect of your application, as well as preparing tips for going into interviews. They might also do tell me about yourself workshops. So these are really great ways to not only be considered as for maybe a potential application merit scholarship process, also to help you prepare and nail down the actual application recommendations. With that said, I recognize that we're going into our round one deadline on this time next Tuesday, which is kind of crazy, but very exciting at the same time. We do recognize that, round two and round three, we are still filling a full class, and we will absolutely be looking at these in the same competitive and holistic approach. I just want to put these dates on your radar. Okay, so I'm going to pause on this slide as I go through and address questions from the qualitative aspects, and then I will highlight some upcoming great events as well as some other resources that I recommend checking out based on this application workshop. Okay. I have one question about the MBA Advanced Access Program. That's a great question. So as part of our full-time application, we have what we call MAP, MBA Advanced Access Program, and these are for students who are either rising seniors and are going to graduate from their undergraduate degrees in May, or have gone right from the undergrad into a specialized master's and do not have that traditional full-time work experience. In those cases, we have what we call the advanced access program, and it's an ability to defer your matriculation into the MBA program while you get that 2 years of work experience. In that case, you are going to apply in rounds three, and that is when you'll be considered for that full review process. So we need to make sure that we have as much as your academic um, complete like transcripts and completion up into that point in order to be able to review in a holistic and completed manner. We need to make sure you're on track for the graduation. Uh, with that said, that is when you can apply for the full-time test waiver policy. So going in when we release those full-time test waiver policy deadlines for round three, that is when you can apply for review. We do also usually host MBA advanced access specific webinars, typically in midwinter. So I'd say take a look, keep an eye out on our events calendar in January and February for more of those specific webinars. And you can always reach out to Georgetown. I'm going to drop this in the chat now. This is a great actual link for everyone. It's Georgetown MBA at georgetown.edu to get a hold of our team for the MEP program. Okay. Um, one one question that typically pops up is say you have say you're looking at your professional work experience and you may, in terms of quantity, may fall slightly outside of our typical range of 2 to 10 years. So say you're just under that 2 year mark and or you're just over that 10 year mark. We provide the ranges because it really is taking into consideration a lot of aspects. One of the on the higher end of the ranges, so say you have more than 10 years of work experience, a question that a lot of our advisors typically start off with that question is, we want to make sure that we're setting you up for success with your career goals. So say you have, maybe 10 to 15 years of work experience, we need to ensure that the traditional MBA, whether it's in the full-time or the part-time format, but the traditional MBA program is going to set you up for the most success in your career goals. We might ask, have you considered an executive MBA, which is why we're probably prompting you for those thoughts. But there's still absolutely opportunities for those applicants in that 10 to 15 year mark to still absolutely need those necessary skills that a traditional MBA can provide you for that pivot or that next step in your career enhancement goal. So just keep that in mind of how your career goals align with a traditional MBA path. And it does not necessarily hinder you from applying, whether you have, more years work experience on the outer range of the class profile range or just slightly under. When you're just slightly under that 2 years work experience, you really need to ensure, and you're not doing the advanced access deferral program, we really need to ensure that you still have enough life experience and work experience to provide quality contributions into the classroom. So those are just, things to keep in mind. And if you have any more personalized questions, my recommendation is to set up a conversation or chat one of our admissions advisors. And I'm going to drop a really great link. It's our Unibuddy, so you can direct message any one of our admissions advisors to have more of those personal nuanced questions. Going back to that quick question about grade scales essentially show how much the GPA, so your institution is ranking your grading your classes on, so whether it's out of a 4.0 or out of 10, in addition to the letter grades or the value that they're providing behind the success of each class. So yes. Mhm. There is an app fee waiver for this event. Um, as an attendee, you'll receive the survey code at the end within 3 to 5 business days. And then once you've completed that survey, you will receive your specialized code and you can submit that as part of your application. Okay, these are great questions about supervisors and getting those letter of recommendations in. Uh, I actually see quite a many questions about recommenders and ensuring that they one receive our link on time and two they can submit it in time for the deadline. For those just joining, might not have gotten through the full application quite yet. As part of the application for your letter of recommender, we ask for their email address. As soon as you submit their email address into your application form, they will be automatically triggered a form that they are required to complete. We ask that all recommenders complete our required form. They are more than welcome to submit additional letters of recommendation in a more traditional format. However, we do really need them to fill out that standardized form for all recommenders that we will submit to them. We highly, highly encourage you to send them the form as soon as you possibly can, understanding that many of them are uh, just as busy and reminding them is sometimes not our favorite thing to do, or if I was in your shoes. Um, we If you have a one-off situation, please email the main inbox. We typically give a 24-hour grace period. So if your recommender gets it within 24 hours of the deadline, that is okay. Uh, However, anything more than that needs to be addressed with the admissions committee. So as much as possible, please encourage them to get it in before the deadline. I always like to tell them a day or two before if I was in your shoes, to get to get the best sleep on your end. Ah. Oh, Camila, thank you for addressing. It sounds like you were recording your application, your video for submission, and you did not necessarily have, I would say, a more traditional business professional attire. That's okay. Uh, we do not necessarily need a jacket or a suit in the application. It just needs to be polished. And if you are, more smart business, that's okay. We just need to ensure that it's polished and you would not uh, I would say as long as, there's good lighting and smartly dressed, that is appropriate. Mm. The next set of questions that I keep popping up. So I really appreciate all the thoughtful and very, you know, broad approach questions. So thank you so much for addressing a lot of the questions. Uh, One of the questions that I keep seeing up are the TOEFL results for students who are maybe have completed a degree. Their previous degree was not in an English medium. You do need to provide a TOEFL score if you're, like I said, if your last degree, the medium of instruction was not in English, even if you are uh, fluent in English. That is just a requirement in full transparency for all applicants in that case. Uh, uh, this is an interesting question about the test scores because test scores are also now being offered uh, in a virtual format. So you can take these, whether it's a GMAT, GRE, or the EA, you can take scores either in a test center or at home. The schools do not have a preference. That is definitely an environment you should take the standardized test in an environment that is best suited for your test taking needs. But from an admissions committee standpoint, we do not have a preference of the location that you took it, and we defer to GMAT and GRE for all their monitoring and expectations on security as well. I love this question about, is there an opportunity to do a mock interview? At Georgetown McDonough, we do not offer interview opportunities with an admissions advisor. My recommendation is to actually go back a few slides and take a look at some of these wonderful partners that Georgetown's affiliated, as well as some other institutions, and they do offer, I would say, mock interview sessions. Take a look at their events pages or get in touch with some current students at different schools. Reach out to some of our student ambassadors. So I'm actually going to drop the link to reach out to a way to reach out to our current students. They are great ways to kind of run past mock interview simulations or to really understand about their experience and going through the interview themselves. Okay. We are asking really wonderful questions. I so appreciate your enthusiasm and excitement, one, for getting your applications in for round one, uh, and just asking some uh, nuanced questions that I know that you have gone through the application portal and um, you have gone through and really done your research. So I appreciate the intentionality behind a lot of these questions. Um, okay, the next set of questions that I'm gathering on uh, has to do with more of the program opportunities as well as maybe some nuances on the particular offerings that we have at Georgetown. So this is a really great opportunity for me to pause and drop a link into our events calendar. There are a couple different events coming up that we are hosting, and I want to make sure that I capture as much of your attention as possible. So coming up next week, we have a wonderful session with the GMAT, our GMAT partner, and we'll be going through some nuances and insights on how to approach the GMAT. Caitlin Burns is going to be leading that session, and she is a member of our GMAT partner, and we'll be going through the different adjustments and how to approach the different sections and maybe some of the, I would say, strategies that go into preparing for that. So highly recommend. Additionally, any attendee that signs up and opts into their communications will also receive, I believe, a certain percentage off for a test they sign up. So take a look at the events calendar, see if that best fits for you, and you must attend the event in order to receive that percentage, that discount on your next test. So highly encourage that. If you're not able to attend, that's okay. We will also have a recording of that and we'll post that on our YouTube channel. The next event that I would love to highlight is if you are walking away from this conversation with more questions, that is okay. That is normal. I usually walk away with so many more questions as well myself when I have had to digest a lot of information. We are hosting what we call our drop-in hour with an admissions advisor on Friday. That is an hour-long Zoom, I would say Zoom room where you can drop in and ask a specific question to our admissions advisor that is on duty that day. And you are more than welcome to ask them a particular, I would say, application portal nuanced question. That is there really to help you get any last minute questions before you submit before next Tuesday. And I would say the technicalities on the application portal. So keep that in mind. And then the next big event that we have coming up is in mid-October. And so we have two versions of this event is what we are calling our signature when we host this annually, our focus on diversity. And this year's theme is empowering every voice in business. We typically host this in person, and we are so excited to host this in person again on Saturday, October 12th. In addition, to reach more audiences, we are also hosting a Friday programming in the afternoon, 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're able to join both, we highly encourage you to. If you're only able to join one, we recognize it's a busy time of year. Friday's event is really a way to engage with the community and meet some of our phenomenal MBA student leaders and get in touch with some of the current club leaders. And then Saturday is meant to be more of a masterclass style approach. We're going to be hosting our renowned Professor William Washington, who is a professor of the practice in organizational psychology, and she will open our day with a lecture on DEI in the workplace. The rest of the day is gonna be packed full with mock MBA classes and mock MBA admissions simulation, as well as some really great opportunities to network with some more current students. So highly encourage you to join an RCP for both events separately, or really come and have an opportunity to visit campus if you're within a close travel range. Okay, so those are the three events I wanted to make sure I highlighted that will complement your application experience as you approach round one, additionally leading up to round two. I think those are really great events to kind of pause on there. I really appreciate all these questions. I want to make sure that I addressed anything else. It seems like I've been able to gather as many grouping of questions as possible. Okay. There will be a recording of this webinar. I will post it on our YouTube channel. You can also always request it from the inbox, or we will share this recording in our follow-up email that will also come with the survey. The survey, once you've completed, will have that code for this actual application, and it's an application fee reduction code. Once you receive that code, when you go into your application, you will provide that code in the, I believe there's a code section at the very, very bottom, and the discount will be applied to your application fee as you hit continue. Great, 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 great. Ah, I think we rocked and rolled. Great. Okay, it looks like I've addressed all the larger questions. Again, I will just drop the link into the Unibuddy chat for more of the personalized, nuanced questions. Please reach out to an admissions advisor. We're happy to address those questions, especially given the week going into round one. I so appreciate your patience and, again, your enthusiasm for applying to Georgetown McDonough. I really look forward to hopefully seeing you at some of our other upcoming events that, even complement more of your application journey as well as your research process in this. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.